So once we know that we have many disadvantages of plastics, so very important topic, probably the last topic of this lesson is 4R's principle. Okay, 4R principle is very important regarding the usage of plastics. Here 4R's means the starting letters of your R. Starting letter of each word is your R. First is reduce, recycle, reuse and recover. Okay, so reduce, recycle, reuse and recover is nothing but my 4R's principle. Okay, so every walk of life is linked with plastics. Every walk of life is linked with plastics. You can see almost everything, okay, which we are using today is definitely made of plastic. We can say that plastic has occupied its major role in developing many things in the universe. Okay, so starting from small to large. Okay, so everything is occupied with plastic. So without usage of plastics we can't imagine. Okay, that situation has arisen now with the usage of plastics. So we cannot avoid usage of plastics because we merely depend on it, but we can adapt some recovery mechanics to convert this waste into usable resource. Okay, we all know that these plastics can be recycled, which can be reused. Okay, that is our topic. So we can reduce the usage of plastics, or we can recycle this, or we can reuse this plastics, or we can recover this plastics from once we have used. Okay, so we can also adopt a recovery mechanism to convert this waste into a usable resource. First one is my reduce. How to reduce plastic? So particularly if you are going to functions, okay, you might see different plastic items like ice cream cups, plates, disposable glasses. Everything is made up of plastics. So imagine if 500 members are attending into a function, 500 plates, 500 cups, 500 glasses, okay, all these will be plastics. Okay, entire food is available to you in the form of a plastic, okay, in the form of a plastic plates. So once after the finishing of this event, entire filling of land is of plastics. Okay, so any other alternate method also you can imagine. Okay, so particularly land fillings of plastics, okay, simply throwing the plastics or burning of plastics, burning in the presence of fire is, okay, in incinerators. Okay, incinerators is other way of disposal for plastics. Okay, so instead of burning or instead of land filling, these are the two methods where we can somehow dispose the plastics, but they are having negative consequences because plastics takes more time to dissolve. We have already seen in biodegradable and non-biodegradable. Similarly, if you are burning plastics, it releases many toxic gases into the air, into the atmosphere. This also we have seen. Okay, burning of plastic is one method and the other method is disposal of plastics. Therefore, we should use plastics with great care, and also we need to reduce whenever it is possible. Remember, plastics can be avoided or replaced with fiber or any other. Okay, instead of plastic bags, we can make bags made up of cloths, we have already seen. So at maximum extent, we need to avoid the usage of plastics. The next topic is reuse. Using the same article or same articles which are made up of plastics again and again. Okay. So articles which are made up of plastics may be used again and again for its optimum utilization. So this optimum utilization is nothing but efficient usage of any plastics. Efficient usage of any other plastics is nothing but optimum utilization. Okay. This should be everybody's concern. Everybody should use these plastics for eco-friendly environment. Okay. So for particularly this eco-friendly environment, we need to use this plastics. If anything you can feel now out of the fashion, if you are not using this and you want to buy a new one, so you can give it, you can donate this instead of putting it idle or throwing it out. Okay, so instead of throwing or instead of keeping aside idle at home, you can donate or you can give it to others. Okay, so many things can be reused. Small example you can take: if you have used a pen, if its refill is over, you can simply replace the refill instead of using a new pen. This is also the concept of reuse, multiple usages of plastics. So this is about reduce and reuse.
The 4R principle. We all know that plastic is non-biodegradable. So, we should remember the 4R principle while using plastic. The 4R principle is reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover. Reduce. Try to reduce the use of plastic bags as far as possible, because it is non-biodegradable. It takes several years to decompose, and it is not environment friendly. When burned, it releases a lot of poisonous fumes in the atmosphere. Hence, it is advisable to always use bags made of cotton or jute instead of plastic. Reuse. Things made of plastic are reusable. For example, a plastic container can be used as a planter. Recycle. It is advisable to recycle plastic waste. Most of the thermoplastics can be recycled. Recover. We should always recover the things that can be recycled.
Plastic, as we know it, has only been widely used since Tupperware was invented in the 1940s, but now it is nearly impossible to go a day without it. And as useful as it is, plastic also causes some serious problems. You've heard about these things: turtles caught in six-pack rings, garbage patches as large as Texas, and beaches with more plastic debris than sand. After all, millions of tons of plastic end up in our oceans every year, but as bad as all that sounds, some other consequences of plastic pollution might still surprise you. For one, plastics can emit greenhouse gases basically forever, not just during the making and disposing of them. Plastic is basically just a long chain of molecules, and when it's exposed to sunlight, UV radiation starts to break that chain down into smaller molecules like methane and ethylene in a process called off-gassing. Both of these are greenhouse gases, but methane is especially bad because it's 25 times better at trapping heat in our atmosphere than carbon dioxide. And as plastic breaks down, the problem actually gets worse, not better. Researchers have found that as more surfaces get exposed, there's a huge increase in the release of gases. For example, a common plastic called LDPE, or low-density polyethylene, releases methane 488 times faster in a powdered form than in a pellet form. To make matters worse, once this off-gassing process begins, it can continue, even without sunlight. That's because those first broken bonds make the rest of the plastic more brittle, so it more easily breaks down on its own. Over time, it keeps breaking into smaller and smaller and eventually invisible particles, and as it does, it releases greenhouse gases into the air. Unfortunately, that's still not the end of the story. These indestructible pieces of plastic are also contributing to another modern problem: antibiotic resistance. In a 2020 study out of Northern Ireland, scientists collected bacteria from plastic found all along the Irish coastline and tried to kill them with 10 commonly used antibiotics, which turned out to be surprisingly hard to do. 98% of the bacteria were resistant to ampicillin, one of the most commonly prescribed antibiotics for things like sinus and ear infections. And 16% of the bacteria were resistant to minocycline, another type of antibiotic. Unfortunately, plastic is a great breeding ground for bacteria because they will grow on any available surface in the ocean. And many antibiotic-resistant bacteria are already out there. Plastics just give them more places to flourish. Once again, the problem gets worse as plastics break down because they create even more surface area for bacteria to colonize. And these bacteria don't just stay way out in the ocean. The same study showed that ocean currents can carry plastic covered in bacteria back into coastal waterways where different species could ingest them. Unfortunately, another 2020 study found that bacterial growth on marine plastics actually makes these plastics smell like food to sea turtles. So animals could be eating plastic because it smells good rather than because it looks like food, which is not great. Ingesting plastic covered in antibiotic-resistant bacteria could create health problems for marine animals, but also for creatures higher up the food chain, including us. Now, as plastic breaks down, it breaks into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces, and some of the smallest particles of plastic are capable of doing the most harm. Any plastic that's smaller than a few micrometers is called a nanoparticle, and researchers found that these microscopic particles can even pass through biological barriers, like cell membranes. That means they can enter the bloodstream of animals, pass through the gut lining, and penetrate tissues. They can also accumulate in organs like the liver, kidneys, and intestines. Plastic nanoparticles have even been found to penetrate the blood-brain barrier, a layer of cells that filter harmful substances out of the blood so they can't get into the brain. This seems to be dangerous no matter where you are on the food chain. In a 2017 study out of Sweden, researchers exposed a zooplankton called Daphnia magna to a bunch of plastic nanoparticles. The Daphnia consumed these particles, and scientists found that while the larger particles didn't seem to affect them, the smallest particles, around 50 nanometers, were deadly. Next, to see the effect of nanoparticles higher up the food chain, they exposed a group of Daphnia to the plastic nanoparticles again, and then fed them to some fish called crucian carp. Over the next 2 months, the carp started to change. They swam slower, explored less of their environment, and lost more weight than the control group. When the researchers analyzed the fish afterward, they found the 53 nanometer particles they had fed to the Daphnia were in the fish's brains. And they think these invisible particles changed the carp's behavior. These findings show that plastic nanoparticles can move up the food chain and interfere with the natural function of an ecosystem. And if we eat fish that have ingested nanoparticles, researchers suggest that could even have a direct impact on us. Plastic is everywhere, in every environment on our planet, and it's not going away anytime soon. In some ways, that's great because plastic can really be useful. But unfortunately, it has some impacts that nobody was thinking about when they invented Tupperware. So the less plastic we use and the more we understand the consequences, the better we can protect ourselves and our planet's natural ecosystems. Thanks for watching this episode of SciShow. If you want to learn more about ways to make this planet a better, less polluted place, you might like our video on how engineers and research groups are working on ways to clean up our oceans. You can watch that right after this.
Everywhere. The introduction of plastic has given us many products and innovations, and it has made our lives so much easier. But we all know by now that plastic isn't all that great. This video will tell you 7 reasons why plastic should be banned. Plastic does not degrade into organic materials naturally. Instead, it remains on the earth for hundreds of thousands of years. We use plastic items like straws and covers for hardly few minutes before we throw them away, but every piece of plastic thrown away still exists in this world and continues to cause problems every day. Though plastic is recyclable, that doesn't solve its problems. The process of recycling is pretty complicated. There are several different varieties of plastic and they all have different processes for recycling. Many products have a combination of plastics and other materials in them that makes it very difficult for recycling. Also, plastic that is contaminated with food or other particles cannot be recycled. Due to these complications, only a very small percentage is recycled in the world. Materials like glass and aluminum too are not biodegradable like plastic, but they aren't considered as harmful. The reason for this is they can be recycled over and over again without any loss in quality. Sadly, this is not the case for plastic. Even when plastic is recycled, its quality degrades each time. It can only be recycled 2 to 3 times before it reaches a point where it can no longer be used and is thrown away. Animals often come in contact with plastic. They ingest or get caught in them, causing them to suffer and die. Several innocent animals are being killed like this every single day. Not only is plastic affecting plants and animals, it is affecting us too. Though plastic does not biodegrade, it degrades into smaller and smaller pieces of plastic to form microplastics. These microplastics are found in air and water, and they also easily enter the food chain. A recent study commissioned by WWF and carried out by University of Newcastle revealed that an average person might be consuming around 5 grams of plastic per week, which is equal to eating a credit card. Plastic can't be burnt away because it releases harmful and toxic gases that cause severe problems to the environment and to human health. Plastic is a problem even before it is used. It is derived from fossil fuels, a non-renewable resource, and the process itself is not sustainable. The extracting and processing of fossil fuels from the earth causes air and water pollution, and it is a major contributor to climate change. Many cities around the world have already banned plastic, and many organizations are working to create alternatives. It is time we move away from this toxic material and create a better environment. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a comment, subscribe to the channel and share this with your friends.